Good morning. This is Prophet Solomon your way, coming your way, bringing you the word of God, His word of grace. Remember, we've been talking about not being ashamed of Christ, not being ashamed of Christ. And like I said, there are many reasons why people are ashamed of Christ. Many reasons. But when as Christians, we must remember who it is that we serve and why we shouldn't be ashamed of the gospel, but should boldly and valiantly represent Christ wherever we go. Romans 1:16, Paul says, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes, the Jew first and the Gentile." He says, "For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith." The Paul said he's not ashamed of Christ, neither is he ashamed of the gospel, which is the good news, the message about what Jesus Christ did for us. He says he was not going to allow himself to be ashamed. You see, like I said, the message of Christ, it was an infamous message those days. That is why the Christians were persecuted. Because the Jews thought that Jesus Christ, he wasn't who he said he was. Meanwhile, they had evidence, the religious leaders, the Pharisees and all of that. You see, they saw the miracles he did. They saw him heal the sick. In fact, what happened when Jesus Christ rose again from the grave? What happened? When the Roman soldiers reported the things they had seen, how an angel of God had appeared, the stone had been rolled away onto them. What did they say? What did they say? They bribed them and said, "You know what? If the message that he's risen spreads, it will have a greater impact than even his life." So what do? They bribed him and told them that, "You know what? When he acts, tell everyone who asks you that his disciples stole his body." But you see, it's funny the kind of excuse they were trying to use to deceive people. If his disciples stole his body, his disciples who were not trained, then why couldn't the armed and trained Roman soldiers easily prevent his disciples from stealing his body? If a big stone was put at the entrance to the tomb, which was the case, then why would it be easy for his disciples to steal his body? You realize it doesn't fly, but unfortunately, people bought into it. And especially throughout the Roman world, because remember, the Roman Empire was the superpower then. Throughout the Roman provinces, what happened? They worshipped pagan gods. They worshipped idols, gods which were not even gods. And then the message of the gospel was infamous. Why? Because many people rejected it. Howbeit, a few people believed. And it attracted criticism, it attracted persecution. But Paul said in all of these things, he would not be ashamed of the gospel. And as Christians, we should not also be ashamed of the gospel. Why? Because it is the power of God unto salvation. You think that we don't have such pressures these days? No, that is not true. We have such pressures to be ashamed of Christ, not to represent Christ. You see, let me give you a quick example, right? Remember, in school, back in school, there, I mean, even from my high school days and all of that, there were people who were referred to as creepy, right? And then the reason why they were referred to as creepy was simply because of the fact that they acted and behaved in a certain way. Sometimes it was simply because of the fact that they had peculiar ways of dressing, very decent, or they simply would not join others in doing the popular things. When I say the popular things, what do I mean? Entertainment, when they go in and then they are dancing to all sort of profane songs and all of that. It was simply because of the fact that they refused to roll with the common ways, and then they have all sort of tax. And you may not think that is pressure from the world, but then it is. And you see, many Christians cower in the midst of such pressure and give in and cave in. And because of that, they said, "Oh, I don't want to be tagged as creepy. I don't want to be tagged as someone, who doesn't fit in, and then who attempts to stand out. I don't want to be tagged as someone who doesn't fit in. Therefore, you know what? I'm just going to roll with them. I'm just going to live like them. I'm just going to talk like them. I'll listen to the things they listen to. I'll speak in the same manner they speak and all of that." This is pressure. This is being ashamed of the gospel. If a Christian should cower in simply because of the fact that he or she doesn't want to be tagged in a certain life, it means that the person is giving into the pressure. It means that that person has become ashamed of Christ and the gospel. And that is exactly what Paul says we shouldn't. He says he's not ashamed of the gospel, and neither should we. Why? Because it has power. Why should we be ashamed of the thing we have when it is good, when it is life, when it is truth and salvation itself? We shouldn't. We'll continue next episode. Have a blessed day. Shalom.